Okay, let's get this King Crimson tier list underway. We're gonna start off strong with mother freaking Discipline. That one's going straight up to S tier, baby. I think it was a very successful change of sound for them. Um, every song on that album slaps hard. There's some great instrumental tracks. There's a good ballad on there. And the overall feeling of the album really makes me want to dance and play air guitar. It's got that kind of energy to it. Plus, the polyrhythmic songwriting on that one is just phenomenal, especially on Elephant Talk and Frame by Frame. Like those two songs are my favorites on the album. I just love it. And Thela Hunjinjit is the one that makes me want to dance the most. Thela Hunjinjit, Thela Hunjinjit. I mean, come on. And then, oh boy, we're continuing this list with an even stronger one. S, baby. And you know what? I'm gonna add an S plus up at the top here, just for this album. Because that's how fucking good that album is. Holy macaroni. It's one of the best albums of all time. Every song on there is beautifully written and performed. I mean, it kind of, the album itself kind of resembles like a suite from a symphony. The way it's constructed, the way it flows. And a 21st Century Schizoid Man is an iconic song. The drums and bass line on that one are amazing. I Talk to the Wind is a great ballad. It does sound like the Beatles. I've heard some people criticize it for that, but I don't. I mean, it's a beautiful song. So, yeah. And Epitaph, that's my favorite King Crimson song. That song is a progressive rock magnum opus. The way it's constructed, the way it builds and climaxes and then settles back down. Moonchild is a good song and it has some great improvisation, which if you have the remastered version of the album rather, that part is made more clearly in the mix, I think, and it's beautiful. And then the album ends on Court of the Crimson King, a fantastic song that in its own right is like a symphonic prog song. But that's a great ending to the album. It's kind of like, almost like a longer version of 21st Century Schizoid Man. And I love the guitar work on it too. That guitar tone is very iconic. Robert Fripp is a genius. Alright, what do we have next? In the Wake of Poseidon. I'm putting that one at an E plus. I don't get the criticisms for this one. Okay, well, I get the criticisms for it. I understand. People think it's just a copy and paste of the first album, the one we were just talking about, and it kind of is in a way. But I love the jazzy feel that they bring to this one. The only song on here that I don't actually like is Cat Food. I don't really get that song, to be honest, but every other song on here I love. And it kind of goes back and forth between that jazz feel that I was talking about and like a symphonic feel. So it's kind of like a mix between jazz rock and symphonic prog. And it does them both very well. So I think that one's a bit underrated and overhated, or not overhated, over critiqued, in my opinion. It's a successful album from front to back, except for Cat Food. So I don't get it. Oh, and then we come to Islands. I do like that one. We're just going down the list here, aren't we? I'm putting that one at A. Um, I think overall it's a pretty well constructed album. There's not a lot of lyrics in this one, but they didn't really need the lyrics. Uh, this one also has a great jazz feel to it, but also what would you call it? Chamber jazz? Where it's not exactly that energetic jazz feel that In the Wake of Poseidon has, but it's more of a chamber jazz, like slower pace, more moody feeling to it. And that's what I like about this one. Sailor's Tale is a great song, and I like the beginning of the album with Formentera Lady. That's a great album opener. And then the album ends very well with the titular song, Islands. All the instrumental work on here is great. The use of the mellotron and the saxophone are great additions. And Boz Burrell does some pretty good vocal work, I must say. And what's next? Oh boy. Lark's Tongue and Aspic. You know, we really are just going down the list now. I really tried to like this one. I don't dislike it. I mean, it's a B plus. It's above average overall, but I don't quite get it. The Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 1 and Part 2. I don't think I like the guitar tone in them, but I don't think other than that the songs have much going on. They don't build to the climaxes very well. It's a bunch of nothing and then like some musical passages and then a bunch of nothing and then some more musical passages. And then I wasn't impressed with John Wetton's vocals on this one, which he does do good vocals on other albums, but I don't know what it is. On this one, it just didn't do it for me. Like, the only song on here that I really actually like would be Easy Money. All the other ones fall a little flat for me. And like I said, this isn't a bad album. It's just I don't get it. This is unfortunately the one of theirs that I just don't get. And you know, it kind of pains me to say that because there are some elements to it I do like. Like, I like the addition of the violin viola from David Cross. If I had to sum up what it is about this one that I just don't get, I think it's, I guess, the experimental nature they brought to it. Like, at this point in their career, this is definitely the most avant-garde one that they've released. And, you know, with avant-garde music, it can go either way. And unfortunately, I think it just ended up being decent. I think it could have been a lot better musically, but it just ended up being decent. But let's see, what's next here? Lizard. Oh, I love this one. I think it's better than In the Wake of Poseidon. It's it's an A plus for sure. The standout tracks on Lizard here are definitely the first and last one, Circus and Lizard. Like, Circus is such a great album opener. It gives you that like jazzy feel and also like a medieval feel to it. Like, this album has like a medieval theme type feel to it, and I like that. I really like that about this album. I really like the album closer, Lizard, because not only the inclusion of John Anderson here on vocals, but just because of the way that song is structured. It's the longest song. Actually, it takes up the whole B side, if I remember correctly. And it's kind of like, like when Genesis did The Last Supper or something like that. It's a prog rock opus, as you would say, and um, it reinforces that symphonic prog feel, like how I like to say their music is basically like classically structured music, like a suite, but done in a rock style. And the song Lizard is a great example of that. And then what do we come to next? Oh, Red. Red, Red, Red. It's an S tier. I think it's better than Discipline. It's their second best album. My God, I love Red. Red is one of the best albums of all time. It's up there with their first album. It's not quite S plus, but it's up there. Man, Red, the song is such a great album opener. It's got that hard rock guitar feel to it, and then Fallen Angel. The vocal performance on that one is so good. So I told you I like John Wetton's vocals, just on this album. The cornet that is in that song, Fallen Angel, that when that comes in, I just lose my mind. It's a total eargasm to me. And One More Red Nightmare, Into Providence, those are two really fantastic, like, jazzy, progressive rock songs. And then Starless is probably the best album closer they have. Second best. Second best. In the Court of the Crimson King. I mean, come on. But the progression on Starless, that's one of the best chord progressions of all time, I think. And the way that song builds and builds on itself, it's such a perfect length. And the way it climaxes, the way it ends, God, I love that song. As do a lot of people, and for good reason. Alright, what's next? Starless and Bible Block. I like that one. I think that one's an A. Kind of similar to Islands, I think. This one has a good mix of instrumental and vocal-ridden songs. The Great Deceiver is a really energetic, nice album opener. And then Fracture is a great album closer. They're really good at album closers, I think. And of course, David Cross is still great on this album. I really like the inclusion of him in this band. I like the middle section of this album, the Night Watch into Trio, and then finally into Mincer. I think that's a great string of songs right there. This is a good example of John Wetton being good on vocals. I'm really just hammering that home, aren't I? I can't help it. But yeah, it's a A-tier album for sure. And then, Construction of Light. This one's not that great, but it doesn't suck either. It's one of their weaker ones for sure. One could argue that they really didn't know what they were doing at this point in their career. I think that's true. There's too much like industrial rock influence on this one. Like the song Prozac Blues, like the vocals on that one are not good. And then The World's My Oyster Cup Soup Kitchen something. That song is kind of out there and not in a good way. However, I do like the song The Construction of Light. That one has great guitar work on it and great great vocals on it. Fractured is another good song on here. And I think the album ending on part 4 of the Lark's Tongues and Aspic. I actually really like part 4 of this song. It's a great album closer. Or wait, no, I think Coda is the album closer. But anyway, yeah. I like the instrumental work on part 4. Quite good for sure. But overall, this album was kind of a misstep for them. Definitely a step in the wrong direction. They took that turn of the century sound a little bit too far in the wrong direction. But it's not a bad album, just average, I guess I would say. It's a very average album. Alright, what's next? Power to Believe. I think it's a B plus. This one is like a better version of The Construction of Light. I actually like the opening a cappella song. The distorted vocals on that one are pretty good. Level 5 is a great introductory song. And then Eyes Wide Open, I like the chorus on that one. That's a good chorus. Electric has fantastic guitar work, of course, and drum work. Pat Mastelotto, I believe that's how you pronounce it. He's a fantastic drummer. Good fit for this band. But then you get into Facts of Life. Those I didn't really care for that song. Dangerous Curves, Power to Believe 2. Those are okay. But then Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With. I like saying that. That's a great song. I like the guitar tone on that one. It's actually pretty heavy for King Crimson. Probably one of their heaviest. This is definitely their heaviest album, and that might be their heaviest song. And then I like the Power to Believe 3 and 4, the way that the album ends. I like the vocal work. It's like heavily edited. I wouldn't say auto-tune, that's not the right word, but definitely heavily edited vocals that are very industrial sounding, and I like that. I guess you would call it post-industrial, wouldn't you? It's post-industrial, yes. But the album as a whole, it's not great. I would say it is above average. Like I said, a better version of Construction of Light. The ideas, their 21st century ideas, came together a little bit better on this album, but there's still some like head-turning decisions that I don't really understand. But yeah, like some of the vocals, not the processed ones, but like the one of the heavy metal type vocals on here. And yeah. All right, and next up we have Thrack. Thrack Attack. Vroom vroom. I like it. I think it's the bottom of 8 here. I think the album has some pretty great instrumental album openers that have great compositions, and then they go into Dinosaur quite well. And Dinosaur is like one of your classic King Crimson songs. It has a great chorus and melodic guitars, and it's catchy. And then you have Walking on Air. It's a nice ballad with good vocal work and very good drum beats in that one. And then you have Baboom. It has a nice consistent drum beat over some really dissonant or discordant noises, and it's kind of an interesting song, I think. And then you come to the title track, which I think is the song on here that best displays that 3v3 setup that they had on this album with the that Robert Fripp got together 6 musicians, and you had a typical 3-player setup, but another typical 3-player setup, and they would play off of each other. And the title track on here does that very well. It's great guitar arpeggios, like the guitars are having sex with each other, and so are the drums. It's great. And then Inner Garden is kind of an ominous song. It's very interesting. Interesting in the way that Baboom is, I think. And then the song People is a nice groovy song. One Time is also I wouldn't call it a classic King Crimson song, but it's kind of there. It's like a softer version of Dinosaur, very melodic. But then the next song, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream. That's a catchy song. I like the chorus of that one. That one's a catchy song. Then you have the interlude songs, like Radio, Radio 2, and them. Those don't really do it for me, and neither does the Vroom Vroom songs at the end of the album. Uh, like compositionally, they're pretty good, but I think they just sound a bit too industrial. There's too much industrial influences that go into those songs for me to really like them. But like I said, it's not a bad way to end an album. So yeah. All right, and then next up is Three of a Perfect Pair. Um, I like that one, kind of. It's right there. It's a B plus. I think the album starts off perfectly with Three of a Perfect Pair. That's the best song on here. It's a classic King Crimson type song. You got your polyrhythmic sort of riding a melodic chorus. And then you go into Model Man. It has catchy vocals and some interesting instrumentals. They got a nice twang to them. It's a pretty good song. You got Sleepless, which has a great bass line. It's another classic King Crimson song. It's got a great solo on there too and good vocal performance. Man with an Open Heart has a great vocal line that matches well with the guitar riffs. And then New Ages, I get New Ages. It has an emotional sounding guitar. I like that, and good use of those electric drums, the electric drum kit. And then you get to side B of the album. I think this is the worst side, worser, the less good side of the album. Industry, I like the slow build up with that consistent beat that it has, but I think it's a bit too slow. Not bad though. The industrial noises that are in that song are kind of like what the hell, and the song overall doesn't have enough harmony to it to be catchy enough for me. Dig Me is kind of a weird song. I somewhat ironically enjoy it, somewhat don't. That song is very 50-50 for me. And then you have Lark's Tongues and Aspic 3. I think that's the best the best song on side B. It has really fancy guitar work and drum work. It's a well written instrumental song. And then you have your Barbershop song, which is kind of catchy. It's an okay acapella song. Don't really understand why it's on here. And then your Industry A and Industry B, which are very, very okay album ending songs. I don't really understand them. I'm not big on them. I think uh, Lark's Tongues and Aspic is definitely the best song on side B. So unfortunately, this album is a bit front loaded. And then we come to Beat, the last album on this list here. Beat is also pretty good. It's somewhere in here. Um, yeah, I think that sounds about right there. Another B plus. It's very similar to Three of a Perfect Pair. Like the first song on the album is the best song. It's Neil and Jack and Me. It's a really catchy song. It's got some good guitar work and good vocal performances. And then you have Heartbeat, which is a nice melodic song with some catchy guitars and catchy vocals that go together. And then what's Sartori in Tangier? It's a very catchy instrumental. It's got a great bass line to it, and I like that high pitched guitar in it. And then you continue with Waiting Man. It's got that consistent beat that where the guitars and drums kind of play off each other. And then when the vocals come in, it kind of sounds like a weirder version of U2, I think. And then Neurotica is the start of the downfall of the album. Another front-loaded album. Neurotica itself is not a bad song. It's a little noisy and chaotic, I think. Not enough harmonies and melodies, I think. And then Two Hands. It's like a ballad that doesn't really work, in my opinion. And then Howler is like a worse version of the song Heartbeat. The guitar sound on it's a little off. Unlike Requiem, I think Requiem has a very nice guitar sound. It's like King Crimson tried to do like the opening of Maggot Brain, that type of guitar sound. They don't do it as well, of course, but and then it kind of descends into some like your stereotypical King Crimson chaos. I don't know if that song was improvised, but it has that feel to it, you know. And then the album ends on Absent Lovers. That's an okay album ender. The composition on it is what is kind of meh. There's not enough melodies in it, in my opinion. It's kind of just a straight line, and I think they've done better with their compositions, even on this album. So, well, there you have it. As you can see, I quite like this band. They're actually one of my favorites. Nothing below a B. Even Construction of Light has its moments. It's not a great album, but I like it. What I like the most about this band is actually every single tier list, I think, would be different from every person. They have an album for everybody. Like, well, in my opinion, you know, In the Court of the Crimson King is objectively the best, but I mean, there's some pretty consistent opinions about them overall, but like the details, the nuances of them are very different from person to person, and I like that. They were very ahead of their times. They were able to keep up with the times very well. They're not one of those typical progressive rock bands in the 70s that dropped the hell off and started making bland pop rock. Yes. But they did come back, and you know, in the 80s and the 90s and then the 2000s, coming in with a different style each time. And I love that. Unfortunately, they don't have any S tier albums after 1981. You know, I do like Thrack. I think, you know, if you'd tighten the screws on that one a bit, that would be a hell of an album. But overall, it's a hell of a band. I would recommend any of the A tier and above to anybody. Like, those are some solid albums. Like the B plus ones, they have their moments, but anything A above, those are some great albums from a great band. Robert Fripp is a fucking genius, and I'll leave it at that.